Why do we seem to grow apart in long-term relationships? And is that normal? First of all, one of the things is that that's a pretty common phenomenon or experience of people is that they feel like the if they've been in a relationship a long time, it gets to be to where they feel more like roommates. I hear that a lot, or they feel like they're just going through the motions, or they feel disconnected, or they might feel like they're always in conflict, and so there feels like a whole lot of emotional distance there. And one of the things about that is, to some degree, that can be normal, but if it goes too far, then that's just not normal and not a healthy relationship. But I think, as much as anything, on the practical side, once you've been with a person for a long time, there's a sense of comfort there, there's a sense of closeness there, and there's a sense of safety there as well in a healthy relationship. And I think sometimes we can get complacent with that and we just don't recognize that, okay, we're in this pattern. We're just going through the motions day to day. And just don't feel that connected emotionally to my partner anymore. And so, what are some ways around that? One of the things is that it is kind of the cliche is that relationships take work. I would say a better way to say that is it takes intentionality, and that you want to be able to connect with your partner. I'm not saying that there aren't relationships out there where people still really look forward to being with each other, they look forward to being together, all of those kinds of things. But they're over time, the longer a person's with someone, they get used to it and they can tend to take that, get used to the other person and tend to take them for granted. So that's one aspect of it. But another one that is that causes people to feel distance in their relationship is ongoing conflict, and that there's constantly some sort of conflict or some sort of resentments going on. One of the things that I think about in relationships is that a lot of times we avoid dealing with the resentments we have in our relationship. I think number one is nobody likes conflict, and so we just don't bring it up or we don't say anything about it just because we don't want the conflict, or we want to keep things smoothed over. And so resentments, if those things are not taken care of, it builds up resentment for us. And I think over time, you can have a lot of little resentments that kind of stack up, kind of like bricks to a wall. And the higher that wall gets, or the more bricks there are in that wall, if they're not addressed, then people become protective of each other, suspicious of each other. And then the conflict begins by, just as like to say, throwing little rocks at each other over the wall. So it's kind of like two kids hiding behind a wall, and they're just trying to pound the other person to win, or keep them away, or take advantage, or just avoid them altogether. And when a relationship reaches that point, it's really critical that a couple do what they need to do to begin to change those patterns. So that's distance at an extreme, kind of on the negative end. But I think what it takes to change all of that is to be intentional with your partner about spending time with each other. If you think about when you were early on in people's relationships, they look forward to being with each other. They did a lot of activities together. They spent time listening to each other. They spent time just talking to each other about life and getting to know each other. And I think one of the big ways to get to that is with curiosity. And so if you think about early on in relationships, both people were curious about each other. They really looked forward to asking questions and learning about their partner. Over time, we kind of get to the place where we think we know our partner. We know them like the back of our hand. We know what their responses are going to be. And I think that can be really, really kind of devastating for a relationship if it goes to extremes. So, number one, I would say learn to be curious with your partner. If they're doing something, or you catch them doing catch them maybe pulling away, or you feel like they're avoiding you in some way, is to get curious about that. And also be willing to look at yourself and look at what you're contributing to what's going on in the relationship that might be causing that. As I tell couples all the time, the only part of a relationship you have control over is what you are doing yourself. And so being aware of how what you're doing is affecting your partner, and being aware of ways and being willing to change some of those things if you know that what you're doing is affecting your partner in a negative way. And the second of all, lastly, I want to say is that a lot of times we enter conflicts with this attitude: I've got to win the fight, or I've got to win the conflict. Maybe a better strategy with that is go into a conflict with seeking understanding of why is it that your partner is approaching things the way they are approaching them, why they see things the way they see them. And that can be a way to get really curious with your partner about what's going on with them. So hopefully these tips are helpful. Again, thanks for joining us on the Sightcraft Network channel. Take time to subscribe, leave us comments, give us a thumbs up, and we'll be back with you on another episode of the Sightcraft Network channel.